Welcome to this lecture episode of Final Cut Pro. In this lecture, we are going to talk about the audio balancing, keyframing, and using text on your timeline. Let's start with audio. On the timeline, when you are working on a particular edit, you may need to add different layers of audio. It's not only the audio that is coming from the source rush. You may need music, you may need other effects, and it may add to say 7-8 tracks. In that case, what you need to do is you need to balance those audio tracks so that it comes out as a seamless audio experience. Here on the timeline, I have enabled the waveform. Here, if you click on show audio waveform, it will give you the waveform. If you have the waveform on, you can make out that there is audio present on these audio tracks. Let's see this particular sequence. This particular sequence has got 4 audio tracks. One pair of audio track is carrying the basic music track, and the other 2 is carrying the ambient sound. Let's see the audio tracks separately. If I mute the other 2, this will only give me the music. And if I mute the music track, this will only give me the ambient sound. Okay, this does not have the music in it. So if I am placing these 4 tracks together, I need to mix it as well. For that, you go to the timeline and click on Tools. Under Tools, you will get Audio Mixer. If you click on Audio Mixer, this will open a mixer for you, and this will give you all the available tracks that are present on your timeline. Now if I play back, see, these 2 tracks are my music tracks and these 2 are my ambient sound. So if I think that my ambient sound is a little louder, I can reduce the level of that particular track by reducing the slider like this. Now the volume is lower. If I think the music track should be a little louder, I can increase these sliders and the music will be louder. Another very important feature within the audio mixer is the pan tool. That is, I want the sound to go to my left speaker or to my right speaker, or I want the sound to go to both left and right speakers. This is called the pan feature in audio balancing. To do that, within the audio mixer, you have a panning tool. This is called the panning tool. If you look carefully, you have L and R written here. See, L and R, which means left and right. If I pan the audio track to the left, say both the audio tracks to left and both the ambience track to the right, the sound will come out like this. See, this is the master meter that you have. On the left track, I only have music, and on the right track, I only have the ambient sound. Another feature that I mentioned in my previous lectures is the muting of a track and selecting a track as a solo track. This can also happen on my audio tool bench. Here you have the solo button and here you have the mute button. If I click on the solo button on say A1, I will only be able to hear what is coming out of the track which is named as A1. This is only the music. Okay, so if I want to play only A3, this is only giving me the ambience. So if I want to figure out what is there on my audio track, on a particular audio track, I can just click on the solo option and do it. Similarly, if I want to mute a particular track, I'll click on the mute option, and this will mute the two tracks, say in this case A2 and A3, and I'll be able to hear sound that is coming from A1, A4, A5 and A6. In case of audio balancing, remember that 0 is your limit. That is, the 0 marker on this master audio meter is the limit. If the sound goes beyond this, your sound is bound to crack, or it's going to give you distorted sounds. It's always better to have to level the sound somewhere between -6 and -12 decibels. In certain mastering platforms, you may even need to balance the sound within -18 to -12. It depends on the mastering platform. But generally, it should be definitely below -6 dB, which is this mark. Another very important feature on FCP is keyframing. With keyframing, you can change the parameters of a shot within the duration of the shot. Say for example, I want to rotate or I want to animate a particular shot. Keyframing is the option. Let's see how to do keyframing with FCP. I have this particular shot here. Say for example, I want to work with this particular shot and I want to zoom into this shot. What do I do in that case? I double click on this, okay, and I see the dotted lines here, which means this is not the source file. This is the clip that is present on the timeline that I'm going to work on. I go to the motion tab, and as we all know that these are the settings. These are the basic settings that FCP gives us, and the scale is set at 100. I go to the beginning of this shot, and these are my keyframe adding options. I click on add keyframe. So this is going to be my first keyframe, and I reduce the size to say 80. I go a little forward and I add another keyframe, and I change the scale attribute to say 101. Let's play the shot. It starts at 83, and as I play on, it will zoom in and become 101. So the keyframe ensures that at this particular point, the parameter of the scale attribute is set at 100 and it starts at 83. I can do whatever I want to do with this particular clip and all the settings here. Say with the scale, I also want to rotate the shot. I add a keyframe here and say I set the angle at something around -41 or say -30. I go a little forward and I add a keyframe here and change this to say 149 degrees. A weird choice, but still, let's see the change that is happening. So here I'll have two keyframes working together. One is the scale keyframe, another one is the rotation keyframe. Let's play the clip and see what happens. Okay, it also scaled and rotated at the same time. With the other options, you can do the same thing. If I want to crop it, I can do it with keyframes. That is, I add keyframes here and I change the parameter a little further. I make it like this. Let's see the effect. It starts with the shot and it crops it. Keyframing can be applied on any filter which gives you the option of changing their parameters. So you can start with one particular parameter and eventually within the shot you can achieve another parameter and you will see the effect within the shot. At any particular point, if you think that the keyframes are not working, you can click on this red cross here and this will reset the entire keyframes for you. and I'm back to the normal shot again. Let's see the effect of keyframing on a particular filter. That is, let's take a garbage mat. So I have this filter here and I drag it and drop it on this particular shot. A garbage mat is a filter which gives you a mat which you can manipulate and where you can select a particular portion within the frame and superimpose that particular portion on another image. If I have this mat on this particular shot, let's have a shot below this. Okay, now the mat is full, so I don't see the shot which is below this clip. I double click and this opens the mat settings for me. So I have 8 points here, starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. I want to mat the face of this character. So I click on point 1, I bring it here, I'll do a rough thing here. Click on point 2, click on point 3, point 4, point 5, 6 and 7 is fine, and I click on point 8. Obviously this looks very rough. I can smoothen the edges with the smooth filter and I can feather so that it looks like a superimposed cutout. Now I have this filter like this. So if I play it here, it will play like a mat. So as we are rendering this, you should remember that I am creating a new file, a new video file. Since I am following the non-destructive method, the source files are not affected, and I am creating a new video file which will give me the effect that I want with this particular filter. Now the rendering is done. Here if I play back the clip, I'll see the effect. Great. So I have two images placed one above the other with the matte effect. Here if you see the clip properly, you will see here at this particular point the face of this character is crossing my mat. And this won't look nice, but still I cannot have the mat here, as in I can't extend this mat to this point. My window won't be visible. In that case, what I need to do is keyframing. Let's go back to the filter settings. I go to the filter. See, this is how my mat looks. I go to the filter and I start adding keyframes. I go to the beginning of the shot. I add keyframes to all my points. Okay, and I go to the point till which my clip is fine. Okay, till this point my clip is fine. So I add keyframes here. After this, I need to change the position of my 2, 3 and 4 points. So I go forward and this is where I want the change. Now if I change the position of 3, it will automatically add a keyframe on my 0.3 row. So I take 0.3 and I change the position. I include the face here. Yeah, I take 0.4 and I stretch the mat and I include the face here. See, here I have 2 additional keyframes. See, this is my additional keyframe and this is my additional keyframe. This is where the change is occurring. For the others, the change is not happening because I have not changed the parameters of those keyframes. Now if I see the effect, see, this is my position of 3, and as I go ahead, now I'm crossing the keyframe and my 3 and 4 shifts to the new position. So this will comfortably include my face where I want it. After you're done with all your effects, transitions, and your edit is in place, you may need to add text. Text can be in the form of titles, your end titles where your name will appear, and text can also be used for using within the film as subtitles or intercards. For adding text, what you need to do is you need to click here and go to text. This is the default text that you get in FCP. Since I have a lot of other plugins installed in this particular computer, I'm getting other options. But in case you do not have these plugins, you will definitely get this text option. So I click on text and a text window opens here. I go to the controls and this is where I write whatever I want to write. Say I want to do text for my subtitles. So I write the dialogue which is used here. Hi, how are you? Okay, so this is my text that I want to place as a subtitle layer. There are other parameters which you can change. If you want to change the font, you can do it. Say I want Arial black, so I make it Arial black. I want to reduce the size from 36 to say 22. My style would be plain. I can make it bold if I want to, and the alignment is center. I can even change the color of this particular font. If I don't want it white, I can make it yellow, red, green, whatever. But for subtitles, it's always advised to make it either white or a little yellowish in nature. So let's make it white. The tracking and leading options can be manipulated according to your necessity. Now let's click on the video tab. As I click on the video tab, I have my text here. The first thing that you can do is you can bring this text layer onto the timeline. So let's do it. I bring the text layer onto the timeline and place it on V2. That is a layer above the image that I already have on my timeline. And here it's appearing as a text on the image. But this is not the right position. I want to change the position of this text. Now I double click on the text layer. I go to the controls and click on origin. I click on this cross here and I can drag the text layer down. We have already discussed what these lines actually mean. This line means it's title safe, that is, all your titles can be within this line. If it crosses this line, it may not be visible in certain monitors. So your text should be within this box. So I have this text here. Now if I think that I want to reduce the size of my text, I can go to the controls and reduce the size further. Now if I have this subtitle layer on a white image, that is the part of the image that the subtitle is placed on is white in color. Since my fonts are white, it won't be visible. Let's see this example. If I take this subtitle layer here and the same text is not visible because it's white on white. So for that I need to use a drop shadow. For that you double click on the subtitle layer, go to the motion tab and enable your drop shadow option. If you want to change the parameters of this drop shadow, you can change it here. Usually for subtitles, you set the offset at 1, reduce the softness to 0 and increase the opacity to 100. This gives you a sharp shadow behind the text and your text is absolutely and clearly visible. In case you want to make your titles with FCP, you can do it. Say for example, you have a title where part of the title is with bigger fonts and part of it is with smaller fonts. In FCP, you cannot have two font sizes on the same card. In that case, you have to use multiple title cards. So let's see how to do it. We go to the text option and we go to controls and write, say, final film. Okay, this is the name of my film. So I choose a particular font here, I choose a particular color. Let's say I choose green, and I choose a font size which is around 40. I go to video tab and I bring it here. Okay, with this card I want another text to come below that particular title. So in that case, what I do is I create another text layer and write the text that I want. Say I write my film. Okay, here I may choose a different font. Okay, let's choose a different font, and I also choose a different size. I go to video and I bring this text layer above my previous text layer, and it's overlapping. So what to do? I double click on the new layer, go to the controls tab and click on origin. I drag the text layer to the position I want. This is how it will look like. Now if I want a transition effect, I can go to the cut point, I go to the effects tab, I go to video transitions, I go to dissolve, and I bring in the cross dissolve effect, and it will fade in. If I want the same effect on my first card, I can also do it. And finally, if I want a fade out, I can also do it with this particular filter. So my card will fade in, my second line will fade in, and both will fade out together, as it happens for most of the films. Still, if you are not satisfied with the title that you have made, you can add animation to this. Let's see if this is my title card. Let's see if I can animate this particular card. I go to the clip, I double click on this, I go to the motion tab. I want to play around with the scale attribute. I go to the first frame, add a keyframe here, and I go to the last frame and add a keyframe here, and I increase the scale attribute to say 281, and I reduce the first keyframe attribute to say 80. Okay, so eventually from 80 it will go to 281. So eventually it will go from 80 to 281. So it will give me a zoom in effect. The same thing I can do with my second card, or I can leave it as it is. So let's see what it looks like. I do a fast rendering. Now it's rendered, and let's see the effect. Okay, if you think that the last point is too big, that is 281 is too big a number, I go to the controls tab, I go to the motion tab, I go to the last keyframe and I reduce it. I can make it say 150. I make it 150, and this is how it will end. It will start here and it will end here like this. So this will give you an animated title, which I think will serve your purpose. This is all for this particular lecture. In the next lecture, we will talk about advanced effects like color correction and chroma keying.